Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Carnival Row, Season 2, Episode 8. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I think this episode kind of because I was going into this because I talked about this maybe with episode 6, maybe okay, we've got 4 episodes left. It's how are you all gonna converge this all into one? This episode is the one that's oh yeah, everything finally falls into place. You kind of see the bigger picture that's been building this entire season, because I was just yeah, I knew the Imogen and Agreus stuff was its own thing to some extent, but it was tied into the new pack stuff. I mean, in the new Dawn stuff, so I was okay, that's going to correlate into all this Berg stuff too, but it was too much of a coincidence that while the pack is having its own, revolution, because the pack versus New Dawn, you also have, everything bubbling on Carnival Row too in the Berg, so it's there were just too many similarities that there had to be something more to that, because Asparus, I could not figure out its motivation. I mean, other than, why was it inciting fights between humans and Fae, even though this thing's all about saving Fae. They even made the point that it released Fae, the Fae it released from the prison started causing more mayhem. So it's mayhem was the point. And I guess the mayhem is a big part of any revolution. Anyway, before we kind of really get into that, let's start off with the, Ragusa situation, where we have Agreus, Ezra and Imogen escaping with Home Dude, who didn't last long. He immediately got. So the three of them are trying to make their way out, dealing with the Pact, who obviously, I guess, Agreus obviously doesn't know their tactic, because the moment the needle came out, I was you're not going to inject him with it. And he was kind of smiling when the Pact guy, soldier, was smiling. I was you're trying to turn, right, going full Merrick. Yeah, and it's right, you don't know about that tactic. Luckily, Imogen was able to get Agreus the gun in time that he was able to blow the dude's half his head off. So, and Ezra was just whimpering in the corner at the time. To be fair, he's not a trained soldier. He's never had to really fight for anything. And both of them have kind of had to fight to get to where they are. So his survival instincts aren't quite what they are. He's just, even in the end, even with the circumstances being what they are, he's still got a gun ready to kill Agreus at any point in time. But I think it speaks volumes that at no point, it took the bare last minute for him to do it, because his plan is right, let's turn ourselves over to the Pact, and that way I'll seem hey, let them know we're Berg and the Pact are allies, and we'll say that Agreus is our servant, so that way we all make it out of this. So that's probably the only reason why he left Agreus alive, because he was tempted just to pull the gun out on him later on. But they got out of town, and I was it wasn't the one-sided fight I thought it was going to be. I mean, it's Ragusa is in flames, but there's even a pack blimp going down. I'm once again, it's we never see. I was how is it that the New Dawn is able to hold its own like that? I was once again, I get, because that was my biggest question last episode. I was did the pack not get the Bergist weapon? So I'm how are they beating you this badly? To the point, even later on, they're yeah, the Pact is on its last leg. I'm you would, I mean, I guess it also makes sense. Whereas the Pact is just people, the New Dawn is human and Fae, so it compensates. Whereas they only have human numbers, they have Fae numbers and human numbers, so they're able to probably compensate a lot more. You're dealing with a force that has been beaten down so much that now they're rising up, and they're rising up because they have so much strength together, and they're fervent in their need to destroy you. Their will to fight and willing to sacrifice himself runs higher than the Pact. So I think that's what kind of puts the Pact at a disadvantage. Might even be our development of the Sparrows. It might end up playing a big role in their winning. I was you would not, because you would think the New Dawn would be the small army, but to be fair, they pushed the Pact back to the point that the Pact had to make a literal pact with Berg. So it's it showcases they were never anyone to, they were never this small revolution to trifle with. They were always kind of big and bombastic, and they always had they could always back up their words, essentially. So, but our trio is on their own, and Ezra dropped some interesting facts about Imogen. It's right, she's beautiful, she was never married off. Considering the Victorian era this is kind of pulling from, families do that whole thing of like, oh yeah, like kind of marry your daughter off. It's like, yeah, I guess I never thought about it much either. It's like, why hadn't Imogen kind of been married off or whatever? Like, you know, she's at that age where it's like, hey, marry her off into a good family and we kind of combine both families, yada, yada, yada. Turns out anytime Ezra had someone good in his life, his sister would sabotage the relationship. And it's because it's like, oh, she's twisted and kind of never wanted me to leave her side because she was so alone and had no one, so all she had was me, so she sabotaged all my relationships. She tried to push it back on Ezra, saying like they had other reasons why they left. He's like, oh, she wants to make me seem like I'm a demon, like I'm a terrible person. It's like, well, you are. Both things could be true, but it's also like, the fact is, basically worked. So even though she's in those inner circles and stuff like that, like everyone's kind of fine with her, apparently her reputation about what she's done like spread, and that's why no one wanted anything to do with her. But all of a sudden, hey, here you are, Agreus, someone who knows nothing about her reputation, someone who has no reputation of their own to lose, because obviously everyone in higher society, especially in the burger, is going to look at you like, oh, you're that puck. You know, so it was kind of like there was nothing to lose by taking, so kind of saying that their relationship was even more of a transaction than you kind of thought it began as. It began as one anyway, but you see that it kind of runs even deeper. And for Imogen, it's like she never wanted Agreus to know that side of things. And Agreus opens up to his side of things of like, right, I have no room to judge you because I did terrible things too. When Faye, like, you know, ended up escaping, I'm the one that sold them out for like 200 guild or like gold or whatever. And it's like, oh, you know, you did what you had to do to survive. It must have been a hard choice. He's like, no, I did it without hesitation because it meant not only was I going to get paid, I was also going to get my freedom. So it is that self-preservation. It kicks in for everyone, you know? No one's above like, you know, those human instincts can kick in. That is like when you've been in that servitude situation, because he's like, yeah, one night I had 3 years left on my contract. And so he took that opportunity, and then it wasn't just that. He hunted down other Fae that escaped to fugitive Fae. And he was like, yeah, I hunted them down. I was really good at it because I was another Fae. They trusted me. I wormed my way in and turned them in and did my thing. And for him, it was kind of almost like a turnabout's fair play because, hey, they broke their contract and stuff, which is like, I think you could look at a deeper meaning of like, right, you have 3 years left on your contract, and, you know, you didn't technically break your contract. They broke your contract because you ended up doing something in service of them, so they let you go. But he did horrible things, whatever he needed to get survive. And you could tell that like rocked Imogen's view of Agreus, because we knew he had done some nasty stuff. Because even Castor was like, right, that guy was like, oh, you kind of betrayed your people in a regard of, because once again, he was someone in their eyes. It's like you were putting other people through what it's like you're doing onto others what was done to you type of thing. And it's like you could have broken the mold, you could have broken the trend, but he's a stickler for contracts and stuff like that, which, you know, now you kind of lean into understanding more about that, about, you know, why, once again, turnabout being fair play. And Ezra could do nothing but laugh because he's like, man, you two are actually made for each other. You're both despicable people, you know, you're despicable beings if you want to be about it. But the pack was nearby, and ultimately Agreus was trying to stop him from talking, and Imogen had his mouth covered, and she just got so fed up with him, she pinched his nose closed and suffocated him. Agreus could have easily killed him in that moment to shut him up, but kept him alive because it's like, right, I know how Imogen's going to feel about this, but Imogen's the one that killed him, and that made it that much worse. And that's the sad thing. Like, that entire sequence was breaking down this, like, beautiful relationship they've been through. But I think it's an interesting give and take, because I see where Imogen's coming from, where she has lived her life a certain way. And now she sees Agreus in a different light, because now hearing all the terrible things he did, it's like, you built your money on, because I guess maybe in her mind, it's like, our family wealth is our family wealth. Maybe we never, the fact that you turned on your own people, your fortune was built off the blood of other people, your own people that you betrayed. And it's like, now here you are trying to control me like my brother. He's like, I would never try to control you. She's like, that's exactly what you're doing. She's like, I've had so many people telling me what to think, what to wear, what to be. I know what it's like to be controlled by someone. And she's like, I will not sacrifice who I am ever again even for another man that proclaims to love me. You know, love isn't enough for me to sacrifice my individuality, to lose myself in that love. And it's just, Ezra, I guess Ezra's final laugh is like what he kind of, you know, but maybe it's a good thing, because now that that's out there on the surface, maybe they can work past it. Where things currently are, they're not in a good place. But because when we got first introduced to Agreus and he was there, I was like, is that the Spurs, like, pretending to be him? But, like, why would the soldiers be there? Like, why would they just be, like, so accepting of it? It's like, because him and Imogen came back. We'll get to that in a second. But I was like, interesting. But they're not in a good spot. Castor shows up, and they meet up at Leonora, and they, like, had Agreus and Imogen dump his body. And I love when Leonora shows up and she sees his dead body and looks at Agreus, because it's like, right, you're the one that was supposed to look after him. The fact is he's dead too. That is your responsibility. So that's even more reason why you had to dump the body. But I think it's where they dump all the bodies of those who, Ragusa, who didn't agree with New Dawn's vision of a new place, a new world. So when it's all said and done, it's like, right, she's like sad. She's like, I'm not gonna, you think I wanted this. It's not. I wanted them to be rehabilitated, but they wouldn't side with us. So it's shame I have to live with for now. But eventually when peace is all restored, we can kind of spread this. This could be the new world we kind of live in. So instead of killing Agreus and Imogen, it's like, right, I'm going to send you back to the Burg to kind of be our emissaries for peace talks. Kind of had the Burg kind of cut ties with the Pact, especially considering the Pact's on the last leg. They refuse to surrender, but they're on their last legs. And so we can, it's like, right, we'll lead the Burg to the Burg and we'll start our own thing, because you don't want our hurricane that is hitting Ragusa, the hurricane that hit Ragusa, because this isn't a river of change, this is a hurricane, and you don't want that hurricane to find you in the Burg, so make these dealings. So they came back, and Luisa and her hubby is there. Like, are you staying here alone? And it's like, no. Where's Ezra? Oh, Ezra's dead. And it's like, oh, here we are together. They touch hands, and he kisses her hand. I was like, oh, are you two better? And then their hands drift apart, and he's like, I'm sorry I kissed your hand. She's like, I'm sorry I took yours. And he walks away, and she turns, and it's like, it's sad to see where that story has gone. You hope that maybe there's enough time to turn that around, or maybe it's too broken for them to fix. But I think now that it's out in the open, maybe they can find a direction towards fixing everything. Because I do think Imogen did find her voice, because when they were talking to Weintraut and the other guy and Millworthy, it was like, okay, so I'm here and you're going to hear me, because what was it kind of like? I think it was like during the time of war, I'm a citizen of the Burg, so I had the legal right for you to hear me, because they were so dismissive of it, because it's like, oh, not only, like, you're from some family, sure, whatever, who cares? For one, they're dealing with the Spaniards right now, so, like, they're not trying to, like, be out in the open, so they're trying to, like, hurry this along, but also it's like, we're not going to kowtow to the New Dawn, like, we're already going to deal with the Pact, but she made her position very clear, and they have to hear her out. So all the while that's going down, we go back to the Row, where it's the aftermath of everything. The Fae are being returned to the Row, and just Philo's just upset that things turned out this way. Still got Barrick's like blood in his hands. It's like, regardless of it all, he was one of the good ones. He was a good cop. Even admitted later on, it's like, right, the best of us. Like, he ended up figuring out, he saw what was really going on, but Philo was so stuck in his own self-hatred at the time, which was episode 6, that he wasn't willing to listen to Barrick. It's like, now I need to. So it's like, maybe if I had done a better job, if I had actually done what I was supposed to do and not just try to run away from all this, if I had just stayed and actually done the investigating, maybe things could have been different. So he ends up running into Dombey, and it goes like, right, the Sparix, and that's an interesting thing to know, that I guess Sparixes can't shapeshift into a different sex. I think that's interesting. So the female Sparixes can only turn into, like, disguise themselves as any female being, and the men, or the males, are like, can only turn into male. I think that's such an interesting thing. So it's like, right, it doesn't narrow it down a lot, but it does narrow it down so, like, whoever we're looking for is disguising themselves as a human. It has to be a face we've seen throughout the season. It's going to be like probably the least suspecting face, maybe. I don't know. You don't think it's going to end up being like Castor or something, do you? Because it's not even going to be Leonora. It's definitely going to be like, well, I was about to say, like, Leonora said that she had a human lover who we've yet to meet yet. So I'm curious what that, like, could it be the Sparus in the form of her human lover so everyone thinks it's a human, or like those on the outside think it's a human, but on the inside everyone knows like, oh, it's a Sparus. Or maybe that's just her well-kept secret. So, but that's why I'm wondering, is it going to end up being Castor? Because he's like the only like member of like New Dawn other than Leonora we've gotten to really know by name and we've seen periodically. So, but it'd have to be someone that, I mean, if he came over here and like as the Spura and just made himself a regular human, then, I mean, to be fair, it could be disguising itself as like a fae, maybe. I don't know. I'm curious to see what that reveal ends up being. That probably won't be something we get until episode 9. I could see that being like an episode 9 reveal, like finally getting to see who the Spurs was maybe the entire time. But ultimately, they end up finding out that we get a bit, because that was my biggest thing of like, well, why are the Black Ravens working with the Spirits, and why are they destroying the Fae's only way of getting out of here? Well, we get the interesting reveal that the Berg government the parliament wasn't just going to let that be. There was actually soldiers hidden on the ships. That is, the moment they went back to Tiernock, they were going to retake Tiernock. Like, it's like, well, it's a golden opportunity. The pack is backed out of it. This is our opportunity to take it back after all these years. And obviously, the only people who knew were like Parliament, but also Millworthy knew he had to strike a backdoor deal because it was the only way he could get them to agree to this. He's like, how do you think I got them to bend to this? Yeah, they wanted to get rid of the Fae, but it's like, yeah, but that's not enough. Like, they hate the Fae. Like, so just even letting them go isn't enough. It's like, no, we need something to compensate. It's like, oh, well, we can take this opportunity to get Tiernock back. So that's how he was able to appease, like, the military people by presenting this opportunity. They sided with him. And so it's like, yeah, it's kind of like a devil's deal of like, yeah, what I'm doing in the end got the Fae away, got them out of the row, because yes, it might have been a complicated thing in Tiernock, but they were definitely in a worse situation in the row. But who's to say Tiernock wouldn't have become that eventually too, like having your homeland traipsed upon yet again in a very totalitarian type of way. Like, the Berg was all about domination in its own right too, so... But it's like, yeah, that's what the Black Raven, that's why the Black Raven attacked, because they found out about it. So, at the same time, Vignette was calling out the Black Ravens, and she was upset with them when she found out, because it's like, right, you screwed over our one opportunity, but Kane and them are there, and it's like, and they end up explaining what happened. It's like, yeah, it was, the Berg was lying to you, and so it's like, right, you don't need to be on, like... That's interesting considering like what New Dawn is. We find out that Leonora's there leading a revolution here. And once again, I love that because I think that's such a beautiful, like, being like, no, it is all connected. It isn't just like, oh, that's a thing that's happening there that's affecting here. It's like, no, it's all connected because her plan is to start a revolution here. Like, her revolution was never, like, it's like, it shows you how dangerous and how powerful Leonora is, that her revolution was always going to be this big. It was never going to just stop with the pack. It was always going to, like, spread around because the pack, what's going on with the pack in New Dawn, once again, the point is that it was happening here in the Berg in a row, and that's what was kind of supposed to incite the violence, the fighting between them, because it would give the new pack an opportunity to swoop in. Because even Philo and Millward, they're talking about, it's like, yeah, the coincidence that they would send emissaries just as this is all going down, because it wasn't a coincidence. It was all by design. So, obviously, Tourmaline is stuck here in a row, and obviously, Darius is like, right, I'll look after her. So we'll see. Once again, as Tourmaline feels like there's no escaping the sight. And I think I don't know if I fully finished the point, but I think I brought it up last episode, but I didn't finish it. But I have brought it up a few times. Like, I don't think in her vision she actually dies. Yeah, because I think I keep saying, like, right, you don't have the full context for it. Like, Samani saw herself die. We saw her, like, kind of die in her vision. But, like, all we saw was Tourmaline look at the Spuros, and we see her scream at it. That's about it. I mean, we didn't actually see it like that, but, I mean, maybe they cut away from that, but maybe that is the end result. Maybe it does ultimately end up killing her. I don't know. I hope not. Maybe fate isn't set in stone once again. Maybe you think that, but maybe there's more to that vision that you just can't see. But now realizing once again that New Dawn kind of planned all this. Disperis was working with New Dawn. This was all set in motion to kind of cause infighting, to kind of divide the Row and the Berg, and kind of use the opportunity to swoop in and cause revolution here as well. So, and now Vignette's kind of like, man, I believe the stupid like Berg Parliament and stuff like that. So that's why I'm saying, like, because she'd be very, like, Vignette would be very anti-humans, but the fact is that New Dawn is both human and Fae. So that's where I'm like, I'm curious, like, how that's going to work. And obviously, Leonora's looking at Vignette as like, right, are you ready to kind of lead the Black Ravens again now that you see the things for what it is? So it's definitely going to be interesting to see where everything ends up taking us. The next episode should be the last 2 episodes. I keep saying that all the time because I go by like IMDb, but I think there's 10 episodes this season, so the next episode should be the last 2 episodes. But once again, I'm never always 100% sure about that because it might be revealed, oh no, this season's actually even longer than I think it is. But it feels like the next 2 episodes might be the end, but if not, either way, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. Okay, so I looked it up to confirm. So everything I'm seeing does say, in fact, episodes 9 and 10 will be the last episode. So how this all wraps up, I'm curious if the final episode going to be longer, or maybe episodes 9 and 10 will be longer, or maybe they'll just be normal length and that'll just be enough to wrap everything up. Because obviously, like, I know, like, they wrote probably this season a long time ago. It probably, I don't know when they started actually filming. Probably went until like maybe sometime during late 2021, maybe early to mid 2022 when they ended up starting filming for it. But I'm sure in that time frame they probably rewrote it when they found out, like, I don't know, they probably did, because I don't think it was originally announced like, oh, season 2 is only going to be like the final like season. I don't, so they probably had, because I know Mark Bernardin worked on the show, so I know, like, because I remember people asking him on Fat Man Beyond, like, oh, when's the new season happening? He's like, I don't know. So I don't know if they had to, like, go back and rewrite things or change stuff. I feel like you'd have to kind of change the overarching story to kind of get to a proper ending. Or I don't know if you could, like, mix match enough to be like, okay, where we went here, maybe there is enough through line that it's like we can go through a succinct and satisfying ending, but without having to change too much. Maybe they had to, like, just start from scratch. I have no idea. I'd have to look into that more. I don't know if Mark's talked about that in any of the like Fat Man Beyonds recently. Not that I'm aware, but maybe I could be wrong. Either way, I'm very, very excited to see where all this ends up taking us and ultimately how the series comes to an end. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good